You know, when you walk into a gallery or hear a new track drop, there's usually this baseline expectation of radical newness. We all want that lightning bolt
Oh,
moment,
oh,
right?
absolutely. We constantly crave that kind of disruption. I mean, it's the feeling of witnessing a true cultural shift.
Yeah, the birth of a completely new way of seeing the world. But lately, stepping into our digital landscape feels, well, a lot less like a lightning bolt and a lot more like walking into a perfectly polished hall of mirrors.
Right.
Everything you look at is just this incredibly high resolution reflection of a reflection. You see a design trend or, a video format, and it's ubiquitous instantly. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We're diving into a really fascinating stack of sources for you today. We've got these philosophical notes outlining a framework called reflective humanism, and we're pairing that with a very specific, thought-provoking thesis titled, Can Imitation Become Culture?
And our goal today is really to observe this rapid multiplication of hyper-similar content across the internet. We want to explore how culture actually evolves, or, well, maybe how it stagnates under these strange new conditions.
Because imitation itself isn't the enemy, right? Like, if you're learning to play guitar, you have to copy your favorite band's chords before you can even think about writing your own songs.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is that historically, imitation has always been the primary mechanism of transmission. It's not a glitch.
It's the necessary scaffolding for creation. Language, art, music, it all relies on it.
Right. But the environment has fundamentally changed. We find ourselves in a completely new set of conditions driven by, well, three major factors: generation speed, algorithmic recommendation, and AI-assisted production.
Okay, so all three of those working together.
Yes. And these factors create this hyper-accelerated environment where imitation doesn't just pass on culture. Imitation actually produces more imitation.
Right, you just have to look at your own social media feed to see that in action. A single audio clip drops, and within 48 hours, there are literally hundreds of thousands of videos using that exact same audio.
Iterating in milliseconds. And because of the algorithms, whatever is imitated is immediately amplified.
It just aggressively feeds that pattern back to the audience.
Exactly. Add AI-assisted production to the mix, and the barrier to creating a highly polished imitation drops to near zero.
Which brings us to this core structural concept from the sources, which they call closed-loop generation. What exactly happens when the internet starts feeding on itself like this?
Well, when imitation refers mainly to existing imitations, like AI training on AI-generated data, the system begins to circulate its own patterns,
Just repeating and reinforcing existing structures.
recombining them, yes, at higher and higher fidelity. But here's a crucial nuance from the text. This doesn't mean culture completely stops or freezes.
Okay, so what does it do?
It reaches what the sources call a ceiling of generative space.
A ceiling of generative space. So we get infinite variations of the same aesthetic, but no true breakthroughs.
That's it. You get a million perfectly executed variations of a cyberpunk cityscape, or, endless lo-fi hip-hop beats to study to, but no entirely new paradigm, no lightning bolts.
But wait, let me push back on that a bit. So what does this all mean? If we have an infinite number of recombined concepts and I'm entertained on my commute, why does a ceiling even matter to us as consumers of culture?
It's a great question because volume can easily be mistaken for velocity.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like things are moving.
But to understand why it matters, we have to weave in that reflective humanism framework. In our age, generation isn't just a fixed product. It's a movement defined by what the texts call gradients and phases.
Okay, gradients, like a physical slope, or is it more like a differential in potential energy, like a battery?
The battery analogy is much better, actually. Think of a gradient as the tension between what we currently know and what we have yet to discover. It's a differential in meaning.
Okay, I'm with you.
But in a closed loop, because you're only endlessly recombining the known elements, that differential flattens out. The tension is gone.
Because everything is just a slightly different flavor of what we already expect.
Precisely. And when that gradient weakens, we lose a vital internal resource that the sources call spare capacity.
Spare capacity. Let's make this concrete for the listener, like having extra space on a hard drive.
Actually, a hard drive is too static. A much better analogy is your computer's RAM, its active processing power.
Okay.
Your brain has a finite amount of cognitive processing power. If your cognitive RAM is entirely consumed by running a million tiny background tabs.
Which is exactly what scrolling through a high-speed feed feels like.
Right. Your system is maxed out just processing the sheer volume of the noise. You're burning computing power just to maintain the current state.
Wow. So I don't have the computational power left to install a new operating system.
Exactly. And in the reflective humanism framework, installing that new operating system is called a phase jump.
A phase jump. So that's the lightning bolt we were talking about earlier.
Yes. It's a nonlinear cognitive transition that creates entirely new meaning. And it requires a massive amount of spare capacity to process.
Okay, so if the closed loop maxes out our RAM and weakens that gradient, how does culture actually move forward? Where does the momentum for a phase jump come from?
The sources observe a really consistent historical pattern here. Cultural renewal almost always comes from outside the loop.
From the outside.
Yeah, the framework gives a specific term to this external catalyst. They call it interference.
Interference, which, completely aligns with how cultural movements happen in the real world. Think about the birth of a massive cultural shift like hip-hop.
Right, in the Bronx.
Yeah. It didn't come from a corporate studio analyzing market data and recombining disco tracks. It was forced into existence by the physical friction of that specific environment.
The unique social struggles, the spatial limitations of the neighborhood,
Yeah.
the literal embodied reality of living in that specific time and place acted as the interference.
The system basically bumped into something it couldn't neatly process using its existing parameters.
Precisely. And the texts explain that this interference from outside the loop can manifest in two distinct ways. There is continuous generation, which is driven by open questioning.
That sounds gentler.
It is. It keeps the gradient smooth and lets the culture adapt over time. But then there is discontinuous generation.
And discontinuous generation sounds like a collision.
It is a hard collision.
Yeah.
It happens when the phase difference, the gap between our comfortable closed loop and the messy external reality, is incredibly steep.
The sources use a phrase for the result of this collision that really stuck with me. They call it transparent pain.
It's a striking way to describe cognitive dissonance, isn't it?
It really is. It's that friction when our internal cognitive operating system clashes violently with a rapidly shifting external world. It's the discomfort of having your mental model shattered.
And we've all felt a microversion of this, like the profound frustration of having to learn a highly complex new software for work when you were fluent in the old one.
Oh. Your brain literally feels tired. It hurts to remap those neural pathways.
Right. You are experiencing transparent pain because you're being forced to update your operating system. And the framework is very clear. This pain isn't a negative symptom.
It's a diagnostic tool.
Yes, it tells you that your spare capacity is being utilized to execute a necessary phase jump.
Okay, so this brings us to what might be the most critical dilemma of this entire deep dive.
Let's hear it.
If we take all of these mechanics, the closed loop, the generative ceiling, the necessity of spare capacity and external interference, and we apply them to our current technological moment. In the AI era, generation is unimaginably fast.
Unimaginably fast.
And frictionless imitation is totally dominant. So if the vast majority of our cultural production becomes trapped in this algorithmic loop, how will our culture ever receive that messy, vital external interference?
This is the deepest philosophical inquiry posed by our sources today. If the machine can only recombine what we have already done, are we still creating culture, or are we simply repeating it?
Because an AI model doesn't have a physical neighborhood. It doesn't get cold. It doesn't experience the spatial limitations that created grunge or hip-hop.
No, it has no external reality to bump into. It cannot generate transparent pain.
So are we just stuck?
Well, the reflective humanism text doesn't present this as a dead end, thankfully. It actually suggests a profound pivot in how we relate to these technologies.
Okay, what kind of pivot?
Rather than using AI as a tool to continuously generate more imitation, the sources suggest treating AI as an atmospheric health scan.
An atmospheric health scan. The first time I read that, it felt like a massive leap. How do we mechanically use a generative tool as a health scan?
By changing our expectation of what the tool is actually for. We stop treating it as a primary creator and start treating it as a diagnostic mirror.
Oh, wow.
Because AI trains on our collective data, it is uniquely positioned to map the boundaries of our current closed loops. It excels at recognizing our structural habits.
So instead of asking the machine to create something new for us, we use it to show us where we are stuck. What does that look like in practice? Let's say I'm a writer working on a novel.
Okay, so if you're a writer, instead of asking the AI to write your next chapter, you feed it your last 10 stories and ask it to identify your underlying patterns.
Oh, I see.
The AI can instantly spot your narrative crutches, your repetitive themes, the exact boundaries of your personal generative space. It maps the walls of the maze you're currently stuck in.
That is a brilliant reframing. You use the machine to reveal your own hidden cliches. You use it to show you the ceiling you didn't even know you were hitting.
And by quietly reflecting our state back to us without judging it, the AI helps us maintain what the texts call cognitive homeostasis.
It helps us regulate our internal processing by making our blind spots visible.
Exactly. And when we achieve that cognitive homeostasis, when we are no longer running a million background tabs just trying to process our own clutter, we get our RAM back.
We reclaim our spare capacity.
Precisely. The AI handles the reflection so that we, the humans with bodies, experiencing real friction and transparent pain, can step outside the loop.
So we don't compete with the machine to create culture. We use the machine to protect our spare capacity so we can actually experience the physical world deeply enough to create something genuinely new.
We let the machine manage the loop so we can step outside of it.
The philosophical depth of this framework is really staggering when you follow it all the way down. I mean, we've moved from looking at the homogenization of coffee shops, unpacking the mechanics of closed loops, to realizing that true cultural evolution requires the friction of reality.
Because without that spare capacity, we are just passengers in the Hall of Mirrors.
Which naturally brings us to a concept from the very deepest layer of the reflective humanism sources. And I want to leave you, the listener, with this thought to mull over today.
It's the concept they call phase zero, right?
Yes, phase zero.
Oh.
Or the rationality of absence. The premise here is that meaning is not just generated by adding more things to the pile.
Right. In a culture obsessed with volume, we assume evolution just means more.
More content, more variations, more data. But true meaning is often generated in the blank spaces. It's found in the outlines, the omissions, the silences we deliberately leave behind.
The void itself is a highly generative space.
Exactly. If our digital feeds and our generative tools are endlessly filling every single second of our attention with high-speed imitation, then simply adding another post or another hot take to that loop isn't creating culture.
It's just adding noise to the RAM.
It is. So perhaps the most radical act of cultural creation you can participate in today is the refusal to generate. Cultivate silence. Protect your spare capacity.
Let the Hall of Mirrors go dark for a moment.
Yeah, let it go dark and sit in the quiet, waiting for the genuine friction of reality to deliver a new lightning bolt.